Hey, I'm back with a new video today, and in this video, I would like to tell you how is it that we go about bringing people on the podcast. And the reason why was actually that when I first started listening to podcasts, I was always puzzled about how these people apparently knew hundreds of high-powered authorities that they can just reach out to, and then they would be guests on the show. Let's have a look at the four methods that we have developed to get people on the podcast. So the very first method, that's LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is probably the most common method I use to approach guests. It doesn't work like I would go into LinkedIn and then just type in finance, for instance, and then see what LinkedIn brings up. It doesn't work like that. I knew that Toby Carlisle was someone that really want to have on board. So it was actually kind of on purpose. But what's really neat about LinkedIn is that when you're sending a message, the person can see who the sender is, and that's actually extremely important because if I was just sending an email to Toby, Toby might just thinking was spam. He might be getting 50 emails a day. I for sure get a lot of emails. So if I don't know the person, sometimes it's hard to judge whether or not this is a person who's serious or not. But when you're writing from your LinkedIn account, especially if you've done something about your LinkedIn account, well, then that person can see who you are, and they can see a picture of you, what you've done in the past, and so on. So, when approaching Toby, it was easier because Toby could see that we're already having a show and we already published a few books. So I think that's a really good start. The second one, that is media inquiries. And so, for instance, when we are talking to Paul Arnold, he's from Morningstar, and we also had Alex Bryan from Morningstar. And even though the process weren't exactly the same, it is usually so that when you are speaking to a big company like Morningstar, you don't necessarily talk to the person directly in the beginning. So when you enter the website, they usually have something called media, and then in there you contact that person and say, "Hey, I want to talk to someone who's an expert in asset allocation." I think that was probably what I said to Morningstar, and then I was writing a few questions or example of questions that we would like to ask, telling them a bit about the podcast, and then they will return with what they think is the perfect fit. So yeah, that's also another approach and a really good approach to really get in contact with these people. And no, it's really not that you are bothering anything because Morningstar, they are communicating every day. They are selling data. They're selling information. So for them to be on something like the Investors Podcast, that's great for them too. So they were extremely helpful and extremely pleasant to be working with. So I think that we'll probably do that again at some point in time. Yeah, so then the third one, that is network. And network, that's a lot of different things. So often you know someone or you know someone that knows someone. So the way that we got Hari Ramachandra on the podcast was actually that Preston met him at the Berkshire Hathaway 2014 meeting. And that was it was just they were actually waiting for the plane just on the ride back home, and they just accidentally sat next to each other. So that's network. And since then we actually started a business with Hardy, and he's in a mastermind group. So yeah, waiting for a plane to take off in in Omaha, apparently that can lead to a lot of different things. But network is definitely also one of the methods that we bring people on. And the fourth one, that is the audience. So Colin was actually writing a long email to me, and that was actually about how to optimize our investing site, Buffett's Books. So Colin, he has this company doing SEO and doing a lot of social media stuff, all the things I don't know anything about. So he was actually writing a long email about how he just thought that we can improve the site. And I just said, thank you, sir. That's fantastic. Let's implement that. And then, we just got to talk, and he had a lot of great questions about investing. And at that point in time, I think Colin was one of the first guests that we had on the podcast. So I just asked him, Colin, why don't you come on the podcast and ask the very same questions? Because the questions that Colin had, that was also questions I had, answered many times before on the forum. So Colin came on the podcast, and we had a great interview with him. And aside from the very first episode, that's actually the most downloaded episode so far. So I think it's been quite successful. And what is even more amazing is that in this situation, this has really developed to also friendship. So my wife and I, we're actually visiting Colin, his girlfriend, this June here in 15 in Canada. So yeah, I guess that's also some kind of network. So yeah, these are the four general methods we have to get people on the podcast. If you have any feedback, any ideas, something that is all about the community, about what Preston and I are doing on the podcast or YouTube for that matter, on the investing side, just at Stig_Brodersen, or you can just, type in an email at the asktheinvestors.com. And, I hope to be hearing from you.